guys, and welcome to a live episode of Dial It Up. I'm doing this live right now because we've been getting these articles about upcoming rules. And why I'm doing it live is because it's just easier to go through all of the articles this way than filming it, editing it, and putting it out, and then it not being wholly relevant anymore. So now we can just kind of do it on the spot. As these articles come out, I might do a couple more of live shows for it to kind of just keep going with this. That being said, the reason we are doing this today, or I'm doing this, Jason's in the background playing Zelda. The reason I'm doing this right now is because WizKids has released a series of articles talking about the new rulebook. So after how many years we've been begging for this, we are actually finally getting a brand new, started from scratch, rewritten rulebook and pack. And because they're rewriting a lot of this, a lot of things are actually going to change. Now, a lot of that may just be aesthetically different. Different words are going to be used. Different phrases are going to be used. Cards are going to be a lot more cleaned up. Special powers are going to be a lot more cleaned up. But other things are actually going to be functionally different. So the very first article that they released on this really just talks about how they are looking to clean up and simplify a lot of the rules. I'm not going to read the entire articles on here for you guys. You can check them out at Heroclix.com and just under their ongoing article section. And each of the newer ones has a link to go back to the older ones. But what they're saying in the first article is the first big change to Heroclix language is one that has been suggested many times over the years. We are abbreviating the phrase, give this character an action into something shorter. It's going to become just action. So we're looking at power, move, close, range, free. All of these are just going to be keywords, much like we saw with stop. When stop was introduced, and we know now that stop means that when this click is revealed, stop turning the dial, and this power can't be countered or ignored. All of that is encompassed into stop. So much like that, the wording of give this character a move action, give this character a power action, give this character a range action, all of that is now being shortened into power. It's going to be in capital letters. It's going to have a colon after it. And then after the colon, it's going to tell you what that type of action does for you. They do mention that there's a section here that says taken directly from the 2007 rulebook, 2017 rulebook or pack will be written in the burgundy color in this article and future articles. So there are actually things in these articles, in each of these articles. If they're in the burgundy color, that is stuff coming directly from the new rulebook, new pack. It could possibly be tweaked, but the fact that they're saying that this is coming directly, we're likely not going to see these changes. These change anytime soon. This is the wording that they have decided on. They're going to go forward with. More things are going to be tweaked and play tested, but at this point, we're pretty much going to be seeing these go forward. Now, that being said, I should mention that none of these are in effect yet. They don't have a set schedule as to when the rulebook and pack are going to come out. I'd like all of this to come out by Mighty Thor. That's slated for August, and it is, we are expecting to have a starter set for that set as well. They did mention they don't want any of these rules to come out until after we're done with Nationals and Worlds for the year, which is in June. So sometime after June, all of these rules will actually be official and come out with an official rulebook, official pack. Fingers crossed that we're going to see it for Mighty Thor. Now, when they're talking about in this first article about the change to wording and how we're going to have these keywords, they mentioned that flurry is now just close, make up to 2 close attacks. That is ridiculously simple compared to what flurry used to say in the pack. Likewise, they've showed charge. Charge now says can't be knocked back, power, half speed, move, then close at no cost. We are now seeing powers. These are directly from the pack. We are now seeing powers brought down to their absolute simplest base form. And part of the reason they are doing this is to cut down on the amount of just fluff in these powers. We're going to see these cut down to the basics because this way it's easier to teach. The less words that end up getting thrown in there, the less chance that new players or even older players are going to get confused by it. If you have a very simple this is how things are done, it's hard to screw that up. So that was the first one. And then they go on talking about how special powers are going to be in short form as well. So if a character in the past would have said, this character can use flurry and hypersonic speed, now it just says whatever the flavor text is for that character's power, flurry, hypersonic speed. That's all we need to know. We don't need to know that this character can use this character can use that. And then they're saying that if there is a way that that standard power is going to be different, like in the past we've had Cable has phasing teleport, but if he moves less than 5 squares, he can then make a close or a range attack. So that's actually funny because this is kind of what it's, the example that they gave is very similar to Cable's power. So they're saying that how this is going to be condensed is it's going to be the power, phasing teleport, instead of this character can use phasing teleport. Phasing teleport. When character uses it to move 5 squares or less after resolutions, he can make a range attack. Now that's a little more wordy. It's not quite the absolute bare bones, but it still gives you what you're going to need to know out of this. Also, they have changed that after actions resolved is now down to after resolutions. It's 3 words down to 2. I don't know if that was really necessary for simplifying it, but we're going to see a lot of that where language like that is just going to get simplified. Then they also go on to say that if that character can use more than one standard power, it'll reference the standard power that is being changed. So their example here is phasing teleport, stealth. Instead of this character can use phasing teleport and stealth. When character uses phasing teleport to move 5 squares or less after resolutions, close at no cost. We're going to touch on the no cost in a little bit when we get on to Article 4. But yeah, so same basic thing, but a lot of the fluffy, unnecessary words are being taken out of it. So that's how we're going to see a lot of special powers just kind of get cleaned up. They also mentioned the more pack powers that we're going to see language get cleaned up. Close combat expert is now going to be power, choose one, attack +2, damage +2, or both +1, make a close attack. So what they're talking about when they, how we're going to see things modified, instead of saying modify your attack value by this, modify your damage value by this, cutting down a lot of those words to just saying +2 attack, +2 damage. It's something that we say as players when we're on the board and we're using Perplex. Up his damage by 1, up his defense by 1, lower your defense by 2. It's simple words, and we all know what it means when we see damage +2, attack +2, or both +1. We get it, and we don't need those extra words. And with new players coming in, they're not going to have to wade through the extra fluff to get to the point. So a lot of this language that they're talking about is just getting to the point. They talk about in power next, adjacent friendly characters modify damage by +1 while making a close attack. That was very, very close to what it used to be. They actually even mention that is only 3 words less than the original in power, but it still gets across what they need it to get across. Because there's certain things that while they're going to be simplified, some things if you cut too many words out don't make sense. So we are still going to see a simplification, but however it actually makes it work is going to go forward on this. The lovely thing about catching me live doing Dial It Up on Live, there's a lot of just nonsense that I kind of just put out there and I don't get to edit out. So bear with me on that. So the next article that they put out is called Keywords, and they're focusing on how they really want keyword to be a focus for team building again and for theme teams. Now, once again, I'm not going to read all of this out because that's just a lot of talking, and I do enough talking on my own. But you guys can check these out yourself. Like I said, heroclix.com. So the big thing here is there's actually a huge section on all of these that are going to be all in burgundy text. This is directly from the rulebook, and it gives you an idea of how the rulebook itself is actually going to be worded. So I'll give you a sample of that. Keywords. Keywords are special descriptors that help characterize a character and may allow a character to synergize with other similarly keyworded characters. Keywords are located on a character's card under the character's name. A keyword can be either generic or named. Generic keywords appear on the character card in italics. Any keyword that is not generic is a named keyword. So because we're going forward with this, the new card design, they're going to point out where it is on the card. We've been seeing since, I think, Slosh is what introduced it, the italicized generic keyword, so that you can at a glance look at whether it's a named keyword or a generic keyword. It seems to be easy enough to find out on your own without it being italicized. If it's like a team name like X-Men or Justice League, that's a named keyword. If it's kind of a generalized thing that a character can be, like pilot or martial artist or assassin, that's a generic keyword. At one point we had a list for it. We don't need the list anymore. The italicized thing makes it easier. And then they do mention that if a character gains or loses a keyword, it does so for the rest of the game, even if that effect is later lost. This is actually a change. They kind of just snuck that in there without people really realizing. This is a change where before it was dependent on the game effect that was giving you the keyword or causing you to lose the keyword. Now, as soon as you gain or lose a keyword, that's it for the game. You now have that keyword for the game, or you have lost that keyword for the game. Once again, just trying to simplify, cut down on the amount of questions people have to ask. There was a War of Light guy that took away all your keywords if it was a lantern keyword. Oh, if he gets KO'd, do I get my keyword back? Now, because this is going to be right there in the rulebook, we don't have to go to the win and ask those questions every time we have a new character that comes out with a power like that. It goes on to talk about theme teams. Now, the part I do want to focus on here is that they have changed the requirements for theme team probability control. If your starting force is a named theme team, it can use theme team probability control, which allows any character on that force to use probability control up to X times per game. X is equal to the number of characters on your force with the chosen keyword when it became a theme team, with the maximum of 5. This is probably the most simplest version of theme team probability control that we have yet to have in the game, and it's awesome. You don't have to worry about, when they first came out, we were working on ratios. We had to figure out how many characters we had to a ratio of the points, and then when they went to change it in 2013 and they update it and they're like, okay, well, we'll just cap at the 100 points that you want to play the game at. So 300, you can have no more than 3. So it was the amount of characters you had up to the 100 points. But that's still wordy. That's still kind of hard to figure out. They're also mentioning that they're focusing on the fact, or at least accepting the fact, that people play this game outside of 300-point Modern. We play 600-point games. We play 900-point games. So they want to try and actually address this fact in the rulebook itself. So we're actually going to see some things kind of leaning towards or referencing that the game can be played outside of 300-point Modern. And then what they're saying, why they're giving a maximum of 5. So it's X number of characters that have the keyword up to 5. So even if it's a 600, 900, 1200-point game, the most theme probs you're going to get in a game is 5. And if it's lower than that, it's because you have less than 5 characters on your team. Now, they go on to the specifics of how a character can use theme prob, and that is must have the chosen keyword, must target a character other than itself, and must have 0 or 1 action tokens, and immediately after resolutions is given an action token. There is no longer any restriction on whether or not they can already use probability control. There is no longer a restriction on whether or not they have already been given a non-free action. All of this is just cutting down on the amount of questions that pop up regularly to judges, to tournament organizers, and to WizKids themselves. They constantly get questions like this as to, if I do this and then this and then this happens. A lot of this came up when CSA, the Crime Syndicate team ability, became a thing again, once again around Slosh. And we had to figure out how action tokens were doing, because this was much like theme prob, where they were adding an action token for the use of prob. So they've cut that down. They have changed that now to say that you must have either no action tokens or only 1 action token. That cuts down on the fact that there were situations where a character was given an action and then already had 1 token, and it's like, well, can I use theme prob because of this and this and this? That was more leaning towards the Crime Syndicate team ability, like I was talking about. But now all of that doubt, all of that question is going to go away, because you can't use it on yourself. So if you're the last person on the team, sorry, no theme prob. And if you already have an action token on you, if you already have 2 action tokens on you, you can't use theme prob. I mean, it makes sense. You can't be given an action token if you already have 2. So again, just cutting down on this kind of thing, where making it simplified. They do have a sidebar here where it says, note that a character that has already used probability control, normally or not, can't also use it again in the same turn because of its inherent 1 per turn restriction. That go back to what I was saying about there's no longer a restriction of whether or not this character can use probability control already. They're just saying that if it has already used it, so you can't theme prob twice in a turn. You can't naturally prob and then theme prob. If you've already used prob, you can't use theme prob. But they're not stopping you from using theme prob if you have prob itself. You just can't use prob more than once per turn. That is just part of prob itself. Probability control stops you from using it once, more than once in a turn. Okay, so then we're going to go on to later. They have 2 powers, 2 pack powers that have been changed, outright changed, to kind of go on with this theme of keywords. The first one is leadership. Unique modifier, action total +1. That's big all on its own. At the beginning of your turn, you may roll a d6, 5/6, remove an action token from an adjacent friendly character that's less points or shares a keyword. So that's where that keyword is getting in there. So now we have these 25, 50 point, 60 point characters with leadership that can do stuff now. So it's not dependent on just being lower points. If you share a keyword with that character, you can now take that roll off. And I was actually also reading directly as to what leadership is going to be now. So the less amount of words, as I was saying, the cleaning up the language, that's coming directly from what it's going to look like in the pack, or what it should look like in the pack. As I'm saying, all of these listed in burgundy are directly from the pack or rulebook that they have right now, and may be tweaked, but we're not likely to see too many of these get changed unless there's a huge public outcry saying, no, don't do that. So having it as a unique modifier, on one hand, you can't get an extra 2 or 3 actions out of this. You're only ever going to get 1, but you always get 1. There's no rolling for this extra action. It's just a flat extra action. You add a character that has leadership, you are getting an extra action that turn, which is awesome. There's no longer a 1 in 3 chance of possibly getting extra action. It makes swarm teams a little more functional. Again, you're not going to get more than that 1 action, but that 1 extra action can go a long way on the right teams. The next pack power that has been updated This, I'm going to read it off to you guys, and I found it confusing the first time I read it. There's certain things that, other circumstances that are going to need to be clarified for this, and I'm sure in the grand scheme of when we get the full pack and the full rule book, this will make a lot more sense. But as it is right now, kind of taking that out of context is a little weird. So the way that Mastermind is going to be worded is when this character would be hit by an opponent's attack that deals damage, you may choose an adjacent friendly character that wouldn't be hit by this attack and that is less points or shares a keyword. That friendly character becomes the hit target of the attack instead, even if it's already a target or would be an illegal target. So what we know from that is the first thing that got changed is that it has to be damage dealt from an attack. No more shrugging off poison or any kind of special ability that deals damage that's not through an attack. You can't Mastermind Mystics. I don't even know if you could before. I'm just throwing that out there. It has to be done from an attack. So once it is done from an attack, you have to choose an adjacent friendly character that wouldn't be hit by this attack. So if that other character is target, maybe you're double target and it only hits you and not the other character, you just have to make sure that the other character isn't being hit by this attack again, even if they're targets. So even if they're being targeted, but they're not hit, then you can transfer it. And I shouldn't even say transfer. You're not transferring damage anymore. You're actually changing the attack. This is much like, say, Bizarro Green Arrow, where he decides, no, I'm the target of the attack now. There was a Superman that did this, where it's like, no, I'm the target of the attack. You're kind of being like, no, that guy. Here, human shield. So it's a lot more wordy than I think even the previous Mastermind was. But there's a lot that this does need to say because they're completely changing the way that Mastermind was working in the fact that you're not transferring damage. So it's just you're changing target instead, kind of like a souped up shape change where it's like, no, you're not targeting me, you're targeting that guy. What this does is that it really cuts down on certain effects because they were always considered still hit. Certain things transferred onto them and had to transfer onto the next person, and other things got triggered, and this, and this, and this. And you can see where this became a lot of problems, complicated, and just frustrating to deal with on certain things, especially now that we're seeing Mastermind make a comeback. Joker. There's tons of Jokers that have Mastermind. We're going to see this power again. So all of this is being changed. One of the big things that brings up here is, what about Precision Strike? Well, we haven't seen what the new Precision Strike looks like yet. So it might still just directly call out Mastermind and saying that instead of saying damage can't be transferred. We don't know. We might not find out right away. When Precision Strike comes out, when the new one is listed, maybe then we'll find out. But for now, this is what the new Mastermind is going to look like. It's complicated at first to think about it, but then so is Energy Explosion, and then we all kind of just figured that out. So this is something that we'll figure out as we go along. But it's interesting. I don't think anything really fundamentally changes by this, other than, you know, you can't slough off poison damage anymore, or like non-attack damage. And they're going back to it has to be damage from an attack. So the next one that they came out. Now, this is one that was needed, but kind of hurts. So the third article that came out is about timing. Now, I actually did a Dial It Up episode about the different game phases of this game that exist but didn't exist, and that there is the beginning of the turn, your main action phase, the end of the turn, and then clearing tokens. Those always existed, but they were never called out. They were never specified in the rulebook. They should have been. They have always existed ever since we started getting effects that called out beginning of the turn, end of turn. We should have had this laid out long ago. So now that we're getting this laid out, we are going to have, as I said, 4 distinct phases of the game. And things are only going to happen during these phases, can only happen during these phases, unless, of course, a special power likes to break the rules, because that's what they do with special powers. So like I said, there is going to be a beginning of the turn phase, an action phase, an end of turn phase, and a clear phase. The biggest difference now is actually the change to free actions. And that is during the beginning of the turn phase, only beginning of the turn effects may trigger, will happen. Poison, leadership. At the beginning of the turn, do this. Free actions have now been shrunk and minimalized to only happen during the action phase unless you have a special power or a beginning of the game effect that says, do this. Which unfortunately means that sidestep has lost a lot of its comboing. With sidestep being a free action, you used to be able to do at the beginning of your turn, sidestep leadership, sidestep poison, outwit sidestep poison. My favorite combo in the game is now gone. Unfortunately, it makes poison a little less effective as it used to be. They even call that out in the article, and they said that they tried to tweak poison. They wanted it to work the way that it was, but they didn't foresee the way that poison and sidestep were being comboed when they first introduced sidestep in 2013. They really just wanted it to be a free movement. They wanted a way to just kind of move around the board, but us being Heroclix players, we found out the best combos to make that work. Unintentionally, we kind of broke the game on them. They didn't want that to happen, so now it doesn't get to happen. So when we have beginning of the game effects, end of the game effects, all of those are actually going to be underlined in the actual text so that we can just look at our powers quickly, our card, and be like, oh, that has a trigger effect. There's something's underlined. Let me check when that happens. So it'll be at the beginning of the turn, at the beginning of each turn, at the beginning of each opponent's turn. All effects that have already been in Heroclix, but now we're going to have a very distinct, determined way or when this is going to happen so that we then know when things are going to trigger. And with them taking out, like I said, with them taking free actions out of the beginning of the game, beginning of the turn phase, it cuts down, once again, on a lot of the confusion and questions that go through the rules team as to order of operations. Hey, can I sidestep and then activate this guy's power? Most recently, probably not on the front page anymore, there is a question thread on the WizKids Rules site about Radioactive Man from the Civil War set and his special poison, where it's triggered at the beginning of the turn, and there was a whole questioning about whether or not you could sidestep and use his poison. So they were saying that the way that it will always trigger at the beginning of the turn, whether you met your conditions, and then you can sidestep and then use the effect of it. Now, that's honestly needlessly complicated. And now the way that this is going to work, well, you can no longer sidestep at the beginning of your turn. So, hey, his power is now only going to work that one way, specifically the way they were intending it to work. Certain powers will be like that. Certain little things will get a little bit of a nerf, like I said, with the poison sidestep outwit combo. But it's something that we'll get used to. And I'm sure once, again, the full rule book and the full pack is brought out, it's not going to feel as much of a change as it does right now when we're like, oh my God, not my poison. So they go on to say the action phase. Now, this is just going to be all of your actions happen here. Your power actions, your move actions, your close, your range, your free actions. And then the action phase ends when a player begins resolving an end triggered effect. So go through your phases, declare what you're doing. At the beginning of my turn, I'm doing this. All right, my action phase, I've used up all my actions. End of my turn triggers. And then you do all of your end of turn stuff. We're also not going to see any end of turn free actions. So we're not going to be able to abuse the sloth relic, but by the time these rules come out, the sloth relic's probably going to be retired anyways. So, but no longer are we going to be able to, hey, I made no actions, let's heal from sloth. Oh, but I have free actions, so let's sidestep and outwit and do all my other stuff here. They cut down on that again, simplifying it, letting you know when things are going to happen, and cutting down on the amount of abusable little combos that us players can kind of tee-hee over. And then it goes into the clear phase, which is just clear your action tokens. This is something I brought up on my episode of Dial It Up when I talked about the phases. A little pet peeve of mine personally, do not clear your action tokens unless you are done your turn. Make sure all your free actions are done and then clear. You're not supposed to do any free actions after you've cleared. Clearing is signifying to your opponent that you have ended your turn. That is how you end turn. You clear action tokens. That's a rant for a different day. And then it just goes on to say about poison is pretty much staying the same. Poison itself is now going to read, beginning of your turn, you may deal 1 damage to all adjacent poison characters. It's pretty much what poison always said. So, yeah, now we just have an underlined trigger as to when it's going to happen. They do mention that after these rules have come out, how we've all gotten used to them, they're going to go into place, they're going to become official, they're going to start looking at standard powers again, and we might later on down the road, it might be a year, 2 years, 3 years, who knows, we might see changes to the standard powers again. But as it stands right now, they couldn't find a good way to change poison and still make it the way they wanted it to work. So we're stuck with poison just always happening at the beginning of the turn, and hope the person you're adjacent to doesn't have damage reducers. So we're going to go on to the final article. This one actually just came out today. This one honestly has the least amount of changes to it. This update itself is really just to clean up language. We all know that free actions are a big thing. As I was just talking about, there are free actions that were happening at the beginning of the turn, at the end of the turn, in the middle of the turn, pretty much whenever the hell you wanted to do free actions, except when clearing your tokens, free actions were just happening. So they're cut down on that. With the timing, we've already said that free actions are no longer happening at the beginning or the end of turn. So they said that there are 4 main times that free actions are used. And it was at the beginning of the turn, give a character a free action to do this. At the end of your turn, give a character a free action to do this. So phase-based free actions. The next one was do this power as a free action. So, hey, Jean Grey can use telekinesis as a free action. Storm can use smoke cloud as a free action. Do this normally non-free action as a free action. And then the next one was action-triggered free actions. So it was after this resolves, use smoke cloud as a free action. Or, hey, charge, power action, move half your speed, do a close action as a free action. And then the other one was just, hey, we have free actions. So outwit, perplex, sidestep, all of those were just free actions. So that's 4 different ways of free action. All they did was use the phrase free action, but it meant 4 different things when it came down to how these things actually function and when you could use them in Heroclix. So what they're going to do here is actually change the way that this is worded so that you know when these are happening. So the beginning or end of turn as a free action triggered, that's gone. Any of those beginning or end turn triggers, they're no longer free action. They're no longer actions. They're just, hey, at the beginning of your turn, do this. Yeah, it's not a free action. Just do it. So now we know when it's going to happen. It's triggered, and it just happens. We don't need to add in as a free action, do this, because you're doing it as a free action regardless. That being said, we might not see as many free action shutdown characters as we did around the War of Light days. The next thing is just free. Outwit, perplex, sidestep. We're just going to see free, do this. Much like the power, close, range, move that we're seeing with the other standard pack powers. When it's on the pack, it's just going to be free, do this. Now, the next thing that they're going to say is costed actions as free. Now, that's another thing that I didn't touch on, is that non-free actions are now costed actions. It's kind of just a nicer, elegant way of saying it, rather being non-free as to costed. So a costed action is something that is going to pull from your action pool. A costed action is something that's going to cause you to put an action token on your character. Works exactly the same way that non-free actions work. It's just a different way of saying it. So that is Smoke Cloud as a free action. Telekinesis as a free action. So all of these are going to be, it will say as free. They've cut down to saying action out of all of this, so it's just going to be in big, bold, capital letters, free. So as free. So there's free, which is going to be a pack power, and then as free, which is a non-free action that you can use as a free action. Then the final one that they've changed to is at no cost. Now this is going to be reserved for embedded actions. So we mentioned charge, running shot, where it's power, half speed, close, at no cost. So that's kind of just the very simplified way of saying it, but we're only going to see the phrase at no cost if it is a regular costed action, a regular non-free action that you are being given as a free action. So flurry, power, 2 attacks at no cost. 2 attack action, whatever. You get what I'm talking about. We're only going to see the phrase at no cost if it is something that is part of a grander, bigger power. The other kind of interesting caveat that they put in here, I'm trying to see if I can, is do note that now you can activate the same power more than once in a turn as long as it's activated in different ways, costed, as free, and at no cost. Now that may seem like a really big change. I highlighted it the first time I saw that and had to read it 3 times to make sure that I understood it. And it's new, but not. In the sense that if you had a character that could use telekinesis, and if they had no action tokens, could use telekinesis for free, they were allowed to TK for free and then power action TK. So that was something that they were always allowed to do. It was a costed action and do the exact same action as a free action. Now, what gets tricky is how at no cost is going to factor into that, because there's going to be very few things that's going to allow you to actually do that action at no cost. If you think of the pack powers that allow you at no cost, we have charge and we have running shot. So there's very few things in there itself as to what you can already combo with charge and allowing you to have that free range or close action, that those aren't normally pack powers that are given out as free actions. You don't see a character running shot Smoke Cloud and then Smoke Cloud for free and then power action Smoke Cloud. These aren't combos that are going to come up, but it's nice to know that if this combo ever existed, and I want to find it when it does, that you will be allowed to do it. So it does seem that we may see a lift on they can't do the same free action twice, but then again, maybe not, because they're saying that it does have to be a different type of free action now that we now have these 3 different types of free actions. They did include a chart as to when you're going to be using free actions as free actions at no cost. Once again, you can check out the article for that. I'll probably add these articles in the link once we're done here. But they're saying that it does sound like we're going to get a lot of these charts. And this chart itself is going to get expanded to other kind of common questions. What they want to do with these charts is to not make them a constant reference like maybe the pack will be, and probably likely will be for the first like year that we're going to have this new pack. It's not going to be a constant reference point, but it is going to be a helpful reference if you're trying to figure out when something happens, when something gets triggered. Can I do this? Think of in the lines of like the old line of fire chart. I know that wasn't very clear when it came out, but that was kind of a reference chart as to, oh, hey, can I do these lines of fire? This is going to be a reference chart as to when is this action going to happen? Can I do this action in conjunction to another action? That's kind of the idea of what they want to do with these charts, and we're likely going to see more than just this one single chart. That is in the nice burgundy color, which means it is more than likely going to show up in the official rulebook. From what we have here, it does sound like they have the rulebook and the pack already written, and they're going through final revisions, which is awesome. So that is the 4 articles that they have come out. When it comes down to it, as I was explaining these, a lot of them, it's going to be an adjustment period. We do think that it'll possibly be harder for the older players to kind of get used to it. It is definitely going to be a good idea to read the rule book when it comes out, read the pack when it comes out, and maybe play a couple of casual fun games, maybe even have like a test kind of run through night at your tournament or at your venue to be like, hey, these are new rules. We should probably all get acquainted with them. Let's all just do some games with the pack, with the rule book out in front of us and be like, hey, how much of this has actually changed? How much of this can I just go through a game without referencing how these things are changed? Because like I said, unless you're looking at like leadership or mastermind, a lot of these powers aren't going to be touched. A lot of them are just going to be reworded to work around this new format of how things are going to be explained. The thing that will be interesting to see is when we start getting newer sets and the special powers will actually be listed under this new kind of condensed, hyper simplified format, and what that's going to do for the new card design. Because we have cards right now where we have booklet cards just because the character has such wordy special powers. So it's going to be lovely to see that get cut down on. I'm going to hop into the chat. If you guys are in the chat right now, feel free to throw up a question there for me if you guys have anything. My base opinion on this is I am decided. I am excited on this. I am looking forward to this. I have been looking forward to this at least since 2015, like 2 years, when they started changing stuff, size rules, vehicle rules, when we were starting getting these design insights. It's like, all right, you have changed enough of the game that maybe we should get a new rule book. Please, guys. And then there was actually one day where I was looking at it and I read just the intro page, like the very first page of the rule book, and I was like, shit, guys, they have to rewrite this entire thing now. It had gotten to the point where so much had changed just in the erratas and clarifications themselves that the rulebook itself, you can't teach new people how to play the game on that. Like half of it is not even relevant anymore. So I'm very excited to see that we're going to get a rulebook. It's going to be very interesting to see all of these wording changes, all of these simplifications, because like we've been talking about forever how to get new players into this game. The rules are complicated. We have people like myself who just like sit on the rules forum and all of the Facebook groups and be like, yeah, this overtly complicated rule. No, it works this way. No, it works that way. And we're not always right. I need to stop answering questions at like 7 in the morning because half the time I don't get them right when I answer them that early. So in the chat, we're saying Yes, we've been waiting for you guys to talk about this. Love it. Do you not fear they will overspliff the game? Also, the last article, so more complicated than before. They should have just chosen one free term. I have not read the last article, so I can't make a decision yet. I don't think they're going to oversimplify the game. When the first rules article came out and they were saying that they were changing languages, the first thing I turned to Jason, I was like, they did it. They made Heroclix for dummies. Now, of course, I'm talking about those like yellow and black books that you get at the library that's subject for dummies. And it's just the easy, simplified way of how to teach how things are going to work. The free action article, yes, it does sound complicated, but as I was explaining, there were different ways of how these free actions were being used. And I know personally as a judge and as a tournament organizer, and when I'm doing the high level rock stuff, you get the weirdest questions and the weirdest combinations, and you will get these players that sit down and they analyze teams and they build some really awesome combos, and you're sitting there racking your brain like, can they actually do that? And you're like, well, the rules say they can. Like, it's cutting down on the closing all of the loopholes and cutting down on just the, I can't even imagine what it's like to work for the Heroclix rules team right now, where they just get floods of emails daily asking, can I do this? Does this work like this? How does this interact with this? And changing the way that free actions work, taking them out of the beginning of the turn, taking them out of the end of the term, and changing the term based on how the free action works cuts down on like at least a third of those questions. So in the long run, while it seems complicated to us as players, to judges, to organizers, and I'm sure to the rules team themselves, it really does make it simple. It'll take some time to adjust to it and to recognize it. But once you get it into your head as to what free colon means, which is pack power, pretty easy. What as free action or as free means, that didn't change. All they did was take out 2 words. It says as free instead of as a free action. Works exactly the way it did. The only thing that's changing on there is the at no cost. And again, that is only going to show up in either pack powers or special powers that are embedded powers. So make a free action to do this, this, and this at no cost. It's terms that honestly probably could have been added in when the last rules update that they did in 2013, when they redid a bunch of pack powers and started doing more and more complicated, more and more can't think anymore, but just bigger special powers and special abilities and stuff. Everything fundamentally does the same. It's just adding in these extra key terms like unique modifier, like stop, lets us as players know at a quick glance how it's going to interact with the rest of the game, rather than being like, okay, that's a free action, but so is this, and so is this, and so is this. So if I can do this as a free action, and like, again, it's the simplification and cutting down on the complicated combos and loopholes that players can get away with. And in the long run, I think that's going to be better for the game. Say Lurker says, I like all the changes they are making to make the game more approachable. More players mean a better game, and it will make judging easy. It will definitely, in the long run, hopefully, make judging a lot easier. I'm looking forward to that. Not that judging is too complicated from like the weekly tournament. When you get into the higher level stuff, the WKOs, the Super Qs, Nationals, Worlds, when you start judging that high level, a lot of this stuff gets really complicated, and giving answers as a judge is not always just a snap question or answer. Just like, yeah, I know that. It'd be like, I have to look that up. Even the most seasoned judges, like myself included, have to be like, that's a weird interaction. I have to go look that up. So, I mean, once again, it's simpler. It's simpler. And I'm hoping that'll be easier. But in the beginning, I mean, much like players, judges are going to be in the same boat. I mean, we're going to have to learn all of this same stuff just like you guys and become experts on this all over again. Kind of feels like I've been wasting the last 3 years. No, just joking. Next question is, do you think this will change the overall meta of the game? Now, I'm not the meta person, but I can at least say, just looking at leadership, like, yeah, that's going to change the meta. Being able to take your 50 or 25 point leadership person, automatically adding an extra token, so you know that you're going to have 4 actions each turn and you can plan accordingly to that. And then know that on that 1 in 3 chance that you're going to be able to take a token off of your big bruiser, so long as your little leadership guy shares a keyword. Yeah, leadership alone has changed the meta. There's already people talking about building teams based around this leadership change. So if we're going to see any more changes like that, if any other pack power changes like that, yeah, that'll definitely get to change the meta. Even if all we ever see is the change to leadership changing the meta, it's enough to say that, yeah, these rules are changing it. Do you think the rules forum will be reset again, and what powers do you see changing? The rules forum will absolutely be reset again. There will be a mass culling. They do this, it's kind of sneaky. They don't really tell people they're doing this. Every time that we get a modern rotation, they cull the rules. So unless it's a pack power that's staying the same, or like a standard general rules question, anything that is character based, anything that is map based, anything that is no longer going to be meta gets taken right out. During the last the mass modern shift, my personal account went from having posted, I think it was like 68 questions down to 21, because there were like 47 questions of mine that got deleted because they're like, oh, that's not modern anymore. We only do modern, so bye. So we will see a culling. The next culling of the rules forum will happen when the next modern shift rotation happens. We might see a second culling again once these new rules are in place. I don't want to say we're going to see an absolute, like, everything's going to be gone and it's going to be reset, but there's certain questions that just won't be relevant anymore under the new, like the thread I was talking about with Radioactive Man. That entire interaction with him being able to sidestep and triggering his ability and stuff, that won't be relevant anymore. That's going to be gone. So unless the powers and characters themselves will functionally work the same in the new rules as they do right now, we'll see those change, or we'll see those stay. Love the leadership change. How will this affect ID cards? At the very base workings of it, it won't. It's not gonna, because ID cards themselves happen at the beginning of the game. Sorry, at the beginning of the turn. It was that they already had that stipulation in them. They are a power action. So they were still that one that was like, yeah, it's a power action, but it's a power action that's happening at the beginning of the turn. So it's still going to work functionally the same way. The only thing is now we're not going to see any free actions happen with that ID character, where we're not going to have an ID character come in and leadership or like sidestep in leadership. Like, we're not going to see those interactions that we did before. We're still likely going to be able to see leadership and poison go off because it's still the beginning of the turn, and even that power action doesn't stop the beginning of the turn now. by the time I'm saying all of this, we don't know what rotation is going to be. A lot of the Marvel cards are going to be gone. The DC cards are obviously going to still be there because they came out with World's Finest. But possibly Age of Ultron, Avengers Assemble, and Nick Fury were the Marvel ID card ones, and they're going to get retired. So it's not functionally going to affect the ID cards as much, unless we've only seen like a page of the rulebook so far. There might be something else. They might actually address ID cards in the actual rulebook itself. We don't know yet. So as it stands right now, with the phases that have been set out, the ID cards, they're not going to get affected by this all that much. Do you think resources are on their way out? And if so, how do you feel about that? Yes. Absolutely. I do believe that resources are on their way out. As it stands right now, we have about 6, I think, or 7, I'm pulling a number off the top of my head, of functional resources. And like 2 of those are attached to vehicles and can only be used with said vehicles. Once we get the next rotation, we're going to see like 3 of those 6 resources get phased out. We're going to see Pandora's Box and Rock of Eternity go. We are likely, this one's on the bubble, but we're likely to see the Avengers Roundtable go, but we'll still have the teleporter, which is functionally the exact same thing. So we'll be down to the teleporter, Supreme Intelligence, and then Quinjet and Punisher Van, which only work on the...
Roundtable's part of the Quinjet. Both Age of Ultron.
All right, sorry. Yes, because it came out. Jason's talking in the background. I don't know if you guys can hear him. Yes, the Quinjet and the Roundtable at the same time. So even then, now we're down to what? The Punisher Van and Supreme Intelligence? The teleporter? 3? Yeah. The fact that we have not had a resource come out widely since Age of Ultron. Now, I know the teleporter came out with World's Finest, but it was the exact same resource. It was just DC themed to go with the DC ID cards. So I still count it as the same resource. So the fact that we have not seen a new one since then, and like the Punisher Van doesn't really count, I'd say they're going. Much like relics. I think relics are gone. I don't think we're going to see new relics. Yes, we're seeing special objects, and yes, we're seeing equipment, but the relic roll, that's not even a thing anymore. And as to how I feel about that, yay. I used resources when they were modern. I currently enjoy using the Pandora's Box. I'll use it if it's needed. If it's a casual game, it's not really needed. If it's competitive, hell yeah, I'm playing a resource. If there's things out there for you to use, why not use them? But yeah, I will not be sad to see resources go. I like this more character-based, focused game that we're seeing emerge from this. That's why I like the limited format from The Rock is, hey, no resources. Come focus on your actual characters. I'll be happy when they're gone. I don't think we're going to see too many of them. We'll see maybe convention exclusive ones pop up. But other than that, yeah. Why is Supreme Intelligence resources so underused? I personally feel that the Supreme Intelligence one is so underused because it only affects one character. And it's not to the godlike ability that the Infinity Gauntlet was, where like, yeah, put that on a character, or like the Supreme utility that the Bat Belt got. Even though that was on one character, you got a lot out of it. The Supreme Intelligence, you get stuff out of it, but not to the effect that old one character resources used to get. It's much like why you don't really see the Rock of Eternity. It's a long, slow burn kind of resource where it's like you need to make sure that your team is surviving long enough for that thing to even do what it's going to do. Now, once it becomes like the only resource out there, we might see people start using it a lot more. But as it stands right now, when there's better options, it's just not going to get used. Much like we had with Pandora's Box. Pandora's Box was not even touched, wasn't even considered while we still had the batteries, because everybody used a battery. It was silly not to use a battery. You had to have a team specifically built around a different resource, because batteries could pretty much get put on any team you wanted. But once the batteries were gone, hey, everybody's using Pandora's Box now. Oh my gosh, Pandora's Box is actually pretty good. So as the rotation, as the modern shifts, as the meta shifts, you're going to see these resources. Supreme Intelligence might still have its day in the sun yet, as it is at a point in the convention exclusives where it is not likely to get retired this year unless they go way ahead of schedule and just decide to wipe out everything convention exclusive rather than banning Faust. That's a different conversation. I did not see variant figures with Deadpool set. Are they phased out? Sketch variants, it was a fun gimmicky thing. They had them for one Marvel set, they had them for one DC set, and I don't know for sure, but you could say that the response from the public may have tipped the scales as to whether or not they wanted to keep doing that. We got it for each set. We got them in Turtles, we got them in DC, and we got them in Marvel, and I think that was enough. We didn't really need them. They added nothing interesting, nothing unique or different to the game other than looking different. If you're not going to do something functionally different for the game, is a gimmick that's really not needed. We might see it come back in the future. God packs are a thing that kind of pop up, and every so often, oh, hey, look, a God pack. It's not something that happens in every set, but it was something that we thought was gone and then came back for World's Finest. So I'm not going to say that the sketch variants are gone forever. We might see them pop up again. As it is right now, we didn't see them in Deadpool. Our next set is Defenders Avengers War. If we don't see them in that, what's our next DC set? Oh, we don't know. Huh. Okay. If we don't see it in Defenders Avengers War, we're probably not going to see them again for another bit of time. I am going to pop over to Facebook and see if anybody put any questions there. Aha. Okay, so no questions, but McConnell does say that I can't wait to see this. I'm particularly interested in what exactly will change. I hope I went over that well enough for you guys. I should mention that when these become official, when we do have in hand the rule book and the pack, I will go over every single little detail to let you guys know how these are functionally going to change in the game, what's going to change and what didn't change, what's just being worded differently. I'll take however many episodes that it is needed if I need to do each. This week is speed powers, this week is attack powers, this week is defense powers. If that's what it takes, I'm going to do that once this is out and official, so that you guys will have a good idea of how everything else. Thank you. Elseworlds is the next DC set we're getting.
Oh, jeez.
So yes, once these are all official, I will have deep ones. I've been waiting for this. Dial It Up has been dying because I haven't had these rules. Now I have something to talk about, and I'm very excited. That being said, let's see. No, okay, that is not pertaining to this show. So checking my Facebook is a bad idea. So last chance for anybody to put questions in the chat. We haven't had two chatty chats, so I've been able to keep up with it as I got it. I don't have Jason's fancy dual screens on my computer, but I've got everything kind of set up. Wilbur says, I've only been playing for about a year now, and if it wasn't for you guys, I wouldn't enjoy the game as much. So thanks for all you do. Well, thanks. We enjoy what we're doing. we would love to be able to do more. Jason's new job has got him really, really busy at his job. So he has not been home or even here when he is home to be able to do as much filming as we would like to be doing. But also means that I have a lot more time that I am solely devoting to my kids, so I cannot be editing, solely going for editing as much as I used to. Rulebook will be coming with What If and Elseworld starters. Yes and no. The What If and Elseworlds is slated for June, which means it's going to come out either before or at the same time as Worlds. Yes, it will have a starter pack for both Elseworlds and Marvel What If, but it's not going to be the new stuff. It'll be what we have right now, which will be, 2014 rulebook. And maybe the 2016 pack that still doesn't have the update to plasticity that was supposed to come out with it. Is Wits Kids pushing too many sets? This is a question we get every year. No. It's hard to say on that. Like, for those that collect, it's rough that pretty much every month we get a release. But it also kind of keeps the game fresh in a way, tries to draw people in. It is a marketing strategy that they have been using at very least for the last 3 years. It doesn't seem to be losing them any money. I'm imagining it's making them quite a fair bit of money, so it doesn't seem that they're slowing down that schedule at all. They do have a shutdown time between December and January. We don't get sets. We don't get OP kits. We may get a winter OP kit, but that's usually like sent out in November. December and January, you won't see anything. July, you'll usually see the storyline event stuff, which is when we're going to get those colossal OPs. And then we'll see kind of little things every month. But we also get like movie sets and smaller gravity feed sets. So it's like February was supposed to be Shredder's Return. And then March, we have Deadpool. April, we're going to have Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. May, we'll have Avengers War. And then ramping up, June, we're going to have Elseworlds and What If. July, I think, is when we're going to see the Wonder Woman box set, but that may be June. I'm not sure because I know the movie comes out in June, so that might actually be in June and not July. And then August, we have Mighty Thor, and then we won't know for a while what's going to be coming in our September, October, November slots. Deadpool shifting focus, slowing the game due to checking the dials on back. That's going to come down to the player. The player themselves dictates how fast their turn goes. There's no official ruling on how long a turn can take. If you're for lack of a better word, if you're a good enough player, it shouldn't take you 3 minutes to figure out what Deadpool you're going to be using based on the back of the card. You should know ahead of time what Deadpool does what, even if you don't know the exact clicks. You should know which Deadpool is doing what. You have your finger bang penetrating psychic blast guy. You have your X-Force free movement guy. You have your yellow suit X-Man healing guy. Like, you should know what these guys are doing. You should know which one is going to be better suited. And if it's a high-level tournament, and even if you're slowing down a little bit, you should have play tested your team enough to be like, yeah, I think this one should be better in this situation. A quick glance at hey, what click is that going to be? Shouldn't take too much time. Now in a more casual game or like a sealed, it's going to take a little more time because you're still getting used to the characters. But if this is a team that you are playing, that you're planning to play competitively, absolutely it should not slow down the game. Shifting focus no more than the Batman or the Superman did, just because you can see the back of the dial or the back of the card where the dial is. Thoughts on all these duplicate bricks in Deadpool? I wish they were happening up here, because apparently people are getting 7 unicorns and there hasn't been one spotted in Canada yet. We didn't have that problem. We have different distributors here. It comes through different channels. So we had vastly different stuff opened. We personally, the brick that we got from WizKids wasn't the same as the 2 that we opened in our case. We opened a case, a friend opened a case same time we opened it. They were vastly different bricks. We saw at least a case opened for our pre-release, and at least I think another case opened for our sealed. All of them different. So it didn't affect us, so I don't really have any direct thoughts on it. As for what's happening in the States with these duplicate cases, it sucks, but there's a certain level that's unavoidable for it, is that to make sure that certain collations happen, to make sure that you have a chase in every case, a prime in every case, to make sure the boosters themselves contain at least a rare, if not a super rare or a chase, and like 2 uncommons and 2 commons, or 1 uncommon and 3 commons, to make sure you have that consistent ratio. The easiest way for the factories to be able to do that is to just have set boosters that go out and set cases that just go out. And then it comes down to the actual distributor getting, say, in the very simplified terms, say there's case A, B, and C. This store ordered 3 cases, they should get A, B, and C, not A, and A. I don't know where along the lines that got mixed up, but it is going to happen. I mean, not to this extreme as it did happen, because we did see, because we have this such thing as the ultra chase, it shouldn't have been as common in certain areas as it was. And with WizKids being like, hey, something went wrong, let us investigate that. We do know that it's to an extreme level that it shouldn't have been. They're looking into it. But like I said, to manage a certain amount, you are going to get these duplicate cases. They just shouldn't have all been clumped together. Finger bang, finger bang. Come on. We will get our Deadpool in 6 months. So let's see if we get the duplicate issue in South Africa. It may be fixed by the time it gets down to you guys, or you guys might have the same thing with us here in Canada, where because Jason, I don't know if you guys can see that Jason's crossing his fingers in the background. Yeah, because it's a different sort of distribution like we had up in Canada, you guys might not have this problem. I think the UK is still waiting on their Deadpool. They might not have that problem either. It might just be actually specific to the States and how it was distributed there. I have a friend who has 5 swarms, 2 dupe cases, 3 Hulk pools. It's scaring me off from buying another case. It does sound like it was quite a problem. But I don't know. It was rare. WizKids is addressing it. Hopefully we don't see something like this again. And I don't know what they're gonna do to fix it, but I mean, the fact that they put out kind of like a little press release thing being like, hey guys, something went wrong, let us look into this, it's pretty awesome. Because it only took them a few days for that to get out, which means that they're listening to us, which is always a good sign. When you know that the company itself is listening to its players, that's basically what you want to hear out of something like this. You want to know that they're listening to us and that problems like this are going to get addressed right away. So kudos to them. All right, so nothing happening there. Just double checking all notifications just to make sure. Okay, so it doesn't look like we have any more questions. So I'm going to wrap this off because this is so far the longest episode of Dial It Up that we have ever done, considering we're on like an hour and 15 minutes and my show's usually like 5 minutes. We will, hopefully I went over enough of this for you guys, but if you are watching this in the archives, feel free to comment down below with any extra questions that you guys have. When we get more of these, I'll do another one. I'm not going to do a live show for like every article that comes out, but once we get a collection of them, I'll do another one in another week or so, depending on how frequently that these articles do come out. So thank you very much for watching and listening to me babble on and trip over every single word that I say, without the beauty of editing out my mistakes. And we'll see you guys next time for another episode of Dial It Up and anything else that we are doing on the channel. Night.